Is this asset quietly making smart investors rich? Silver is an underspoken about asset class, and it has taken investors by surprise in the last 3 years, in that it's gone up significantly, but no one really seems to talk about it. The only big public figure I've seen talking about silver is Robert Kiyosaki. And he's predicted a 3x price rise this year. Now, for a bit of fun, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give away some of these silver coins for anyone in the comments who can guess within the nearest silver coin how much all this silver is worth on today's price. So we'll timestamp today on today's price if you're watching and not listening. What's the total combined value of these silver bars and these silver coins? And anyone who can get it to the closest silver coin, I might even give you a silver bar, let alone a silver coin. Now, here's something really fascinating about the price of silver compared to gold. At its closest point, when silver and gold were the closest historically, one gold coin, a 1 ounce gold coin, would roughly have a similar value to this 1 kilo silver bar. It was about 1 coin to just under 900 grams. So that was the closest that silver and gold were price-wise. In recent years, gold has gone up and up and up and up and keeps beating its all-time high and beating its all-time high and beating its all-time high. Whereas silver is different. Silver's all-time high was at 1980. And actually, it's not even up to 66% of the price of its all-time high in 1980. So from that, you could say that compared to gold, silver is very underpriced compared to its own all-time high. Now, at its biggest gap, which was very recently in the last few years, one gold coin was about 3/4 of this 5 kilo gold bar. I wish you could pick this up. So when the prices are at the widest difference, one gold, I know this is silver, but 1 gold ounce coin was about 3.5 kilos, something like that. Nearly the weight of this silver bar. Now, gold and silver used to be pegged together, coupled. It was called bimetallism, where the price of silver and gold were connected, and gold would roughly stay the same ratio more than silver. So as the prices went up, they went up together, and as the prices went down, they went down together. Bimetallism is no more. We've got a decoupling now of gold compared to silver, so they have their own independent price movements. When silver was closest to gold in price, it was a ratio of about 31-1. So 1 ounce of gold was roughly the same as 31 ounces of silver. That's now much more wide, more broad. And depending on when you're going to watch this, it's over 100. So 1 ounce of gold needs about 103 ounces of silver to make the same price. And actually, the biggest difference has been about 125-1. So we're much higher and closer now to the biggest gap between silver and gold, which I think means that gold has gone up a lot more relative to silver, and therefore silver could be underpriced compared to gold. You know, we compare the price of everything, don't we? If a house is 300 grand, but an average car is 300 grand, then that makes the average car feel really expensive relative to the house. And I personally feel, by looking at all the data and the history, feel that silver is cheap compared to gold, or gold is expensive compared to silver, based on its own relativity of its price in relation to each other. So we're up from 31-1 up to over 100, nearly 125-1. By the way, I'm not saying you should only buy silver and not buy gold or Bitcoin or real estate or anything else. I own silver, I own gold. I own Bitcoin, I own real estate, I own businesses, I own cars, I own watches, I own art. So for me, it's just about how much money you might put into one asset class, or if you want to get started, what might be a good starter asset class? Or if you have a finite amount of money to invest, where might you put more? So let's look at the purpose and the properties. So gold has really a singular purpose. It doesn't have any industrial quality. Gold is simply jewelry stroke investment. 90% of the demand for gold is jewelry and investment. Whereas with silver, it does have a genuine dual purpose. It's about 50% investment, and I've got a fair bit of it here, and that's coins and bars and some jewelry. But it's about 50% industrial. So you need silver for solar panels, you need silver for electric vehicles, you need silver for computers, for batteries, for electronics, for weapons, for medicine, etc. So if you believe that the utility value of an asset is important, then silver has more utility value than gold. It doesn't necessarily make it better, because if gold has the desirable value, which of course it does, then that's a thing. But one of the reasons why real estate just keeps going up, in the year 1088, all land and property in the UK was about £1 million. Now, moving on towards 2030, there's going to be a day where you can't buy a car parking space or a garage in central London for £1 million. So one of the reasons property keeps going up like that, I believe, is because it has utility value. It is needed, and silver is more needed than gold. Okay, volatility is next. Kind of sounds a bit weird to say, but silver actually has a higher volatility than gold. So gold's quite a low relative volatility. If you compare gold to Bitcoin and you look at the price fluctuations, Bitcoin is much more volatile than gold, but silver is also more volatile than gold. And I'm going to share a reason later why that could be a good thing. Volatility can be good if you know what you're doing. Obviously, it has risks associated with it. Now, personally, I'm not that bothered about volatility, because when I buy my gold and silver and Bitcoin and real estate, I use the BHD strategy. Buy, hold, die. That's my goal, to buy and hold forever. So if you just buy with the view to hold, okay, maybe you might have to sell at some point, but your goal is to hold. Volatility doesn't really matter to you. But if you're looking for arbitraging, price fluctuations, silver's actually more volatile than gold, and so it could present an opportunity. Okay, now let's look at price. So I don't like saying price because it makes my content age, but gold just keeps hitting all-time high after all-time high after all-time high. It's as close as it's ever been to 3,500 an ounce, whereas silver, 30 an ounce, 35 an ounce. So it's just like 100 times plus gold is more expensive than silver. And that's another thing about price. Yes, there's the relativity of gold to silver. But what there also is this is bloody easy to get into. Now, you can buy smaller denominations of gold. You could buy half ounce or, quarter ounce, but you can't buy $30 or $35 worth in a clean denomination. But you can buy silver in ounce denominations or 2 ounce denominations for $35 or $70. So virtually no money. So what this does, I think a major benefit of silver over gold is if you're a kid, you can start investing in silver. My daughter got £100 for her birthday from her grandparents. So she can afford to start investing in silver. If you're absolutely broke or in debt, you can afford to start investing in silver. I think a great thing to do is anniversaries and christenings and birthdays and all these events. You can buy people who you care about silver coins because they'll go up in value instead of going down in value. Like, I don't ever want socks and pants and tangerines for Christmas and birthday. I'm very difficult to buy for Christmas and birthday and anniversaries. I generally just tend to buy what I want for me. So people now know they buy me silver coins if they're my cheaper friends, and they buy me gold coins if they're my more expensive friends. Okay, so inflation. Both gold and silver and Bitcoin are a great inflation hedge. If you compare gold and silver versus cash, it's just absolutely, cash is the worst thing to hold for the long term. Silver is the second best, gold is the best. I mean, in recent years, Bitcoin probably beats them all. The thing I've got to say to all you Bitcoin evangelists and junkies, and I have to say this, is that Bitcoin's not been going for very long. And gold is God's money. Do you know that gold existed before the earth? Gold is billions of years old. Bitcoin is not even 20 years old. So just bear that in mind. I've also known people who've been all in 100% on one crypto or in Bitcoin, and they've been completely wiped out, by a volatile market or by some other crypto going to zero or by Bitcoin dropping a lot and then them selling at the wrong time, and they've lost maybe 80% of the value of their holdings or more. I know people who've lost millions of pounds. They've made millions quickly and lost millions even quicker. So gold over 100 years, adjusted for inflation, is up 11,510%. Silver over 100 years, adjusted for inflation, is up 3,956%. Cash over 100 years, adjusted for inflation, has lost 94.31% of its value. So even if you're watching or listening thinking, do you know what, Rob, you haven't convinced me, silver is not better than gold and gold is not better than Bitcoin or Bitcoin is not better than gold, at least you can understand that silver is better than cash for holding, for beating inflation and therefore going up in value and therefore actually being an asset. Cash is not an asset. Cash is a liability. What do the banks do as soon as they get cash? They throw it out. They lend it and they invest it. I was having a discussion, debate, argument with an accountant. An accountant is like, oh, well, no, the cash for the banks is an asset. It's on the asset side of the balance sheet. Oh, it's on the asset side of the balance sheet. Why, in that case, as soon as banks get your cash, do they lend and invest it out? Why do they not want to save your cash when you're saving your cash? If cash was an asset, they'd store it and save it. They invest it because they know that it depreciates in value. So cash is a liability. Silver and gold and Bitcoin in the much shorter term have proven to be an asset. Cash is inflationary. Silver, gold, Bitcoin are deflationary. Now, Bitcoin has less utility properties than gold. Gold has less utility properties than silver, and obviously silver has less utility properties than cash. Cash has the best utility properties because you can buy anything with it pretty much. But silver's the next best utility property, then gold, then Bitcoin. All right, storage is the next one. Now, I'll admit, when you have computer games and you've got strength, power, aggression, durability, of the characters that you play in the computer game. Well, of all the properties, storage, silver is kind of like the lowest because, this 5 kilo bar is not easy to store. And you got to find somewhere to store it. Now, you could store your silver or gold in a vault, but who owns the vaults? The banks own the vaults. Isn't the point of having silver and gold and Bitcoin so the banks don't have your money? And if you store the silver and gold in the vaults and the banks own the vaults, then in theory, the banks have a claim on your money. And if there's World War III or some significant financial event, maybe they'll take control of your silver or gold. They've recalled silver and gold in the past, by the way. So personally, I think self-storage or self-sovereignty, self-custodianship, look at me with the fancy words, of your silver and gold, I think that's the best bet. The problem with this is when someone guesses how much this all is, you're like, whoa, that's a heavy way to store all that money. So what you might want to do is buy in silver, and then you might want to trade up to gold if space is at a premium for you. Okay, now let's look at bull markets. So in bull markets, silver does better than gold, which is really interesting. Gold is more stable, less volatile. So in a bull market, silver historically performs better. In crises, gold historically performs better. But in volatility, silver outperforms in bull markets. So for example, in the 2024 bull market, silver went up 32%, gold only went up 13%. So let's summarize where these asset classes are relative to their all-time high. So currently right now, and of course this could change, so you always want to check, but gold is about 3% below its all-time high. So it's basically at its all-time high right now as I speak. Bitcoin is about 7% under its all-time high. But silver is 35% under its all-time high. And that all-time high was in 1980. So silver is still way under what it was pushing 50 years ago, which to me is a big positive sign that relative to gold and Bitcoin and relative to itself and its own all-time high, perhaps silver is very underpriced. Now, here's what's really interesting. I buy most of my gold and silver, in fact, nearly all of it in the last 2 years. And I was having a chat with the founder of Direct Bullion, and I acquired about 150 grand of gold and silver. And he's like, well, what do you want it in? And I'm like, gold and silver. He's no, like, what do you want it in? How much in gold? How much in silver? What denominations? And I gave him a much higher percentage of silver compared to gold than he expected. And he's like, Rob, what is it you like about silver? I don't get it. And silver has gone up in that time from just over 20 an ounce to just under 40 an ounce. Maybe I'm the oracle. Maybe I was really lucky. So yeah, if you want to use Direct Bullion, you can. If you use my link, robmoore.directbullion.com, then here's what you get. You get an investment prospectus and some knowledge. You get the closest to spot price that really kind of can be offered, because people who sell gold and silver make like 7% max kind of gross margin, not even net. There's just really skinny margins for gold, people who sell gold and silver. But Paul at Direct Bullion, I've done a deal with him. There's no commissions to me, by the way, if you buy any gold and silver through Direct Bullion. There couldn't be because there's not enough margin. I've done my deal with him. He's my long-term partner. That's all good. But if you use my link, you'll get the best price and you'll get, some guidance and support. You could look at investing some of your pension into gold. You can buy gold and silver, maybe other precious metals. He's talking a lot about platinum right now as being a potential for, a high uplifting growth. Now, there are VAT issues between silver and gold, and there is VAT on silver, but there isn't on gold. But if you own silver in a company, you can claim the VAT back. You can own gold and silver in a company, so you could store it better than in cash. If you're a bit concerned about the banks, it could be a good option for you. And I reckon that Robert Kiyosaki is onto something. He believes that silver's going to 3x this year. I think he's a bit bullish, or at least maybe he's a good marketer. He said that the biggest crash in history will be this year, and he predicted it in 2013. Now, we have had some big crash in real estate prices in London, but the stock market hasn't crashed yet. We've only got a few months left. I think maybe there is some hyperbole. I think he's probably over-egged the growth of silver. I don't see it 3xing in a year. I mean, it went up from just over 20 to just under 40 in 3 years. I don't see it 3xing in 1 year, but I do see it going up pretty, at least consistently. And I see it at some point it's got to catch up with gold. And that's just my opinion. And that's why I surprised my own gold and silver dealer by how much silver I bought. And then he was like, Rob, I've got to hand it to you. You were right. Silver's done really well. Now, look, if you want to learn how to invest in silver and gold and Bitcoin and real estate, you want to learn how to diversify your investments into different asset classes, then it's not just about investing in one class. It's about learning some fundamental rules of investing, like what's your risk appetite? And do you want, which of the ICE formula that I created is more important to you? Income, capital, or equity? What do you have a greater passion for? What do you have more knowledge and experience in? How old are you? How much are you prepared to invest of your overall net worth? And this is why we have a How to Invest series inside Money School. My business partner and I created a How to Invest series. I've done further How to Invest content inside Money.School, because you got to know your own plans and goals and realities and strategies and where you're at. Then once you know that, it's quite easy to pick where you should invest 1,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 or 50,000 or 100,000. And all of this is covered inside Money.School, as well as hundreds of hours of courses, resources, and masterclasses to make, manage, and multiply money. And you'll be joining nearly 13,000 lifetime members for less than 50 pence a day. You can cancel anytime. There's no ongoing contract, so there is zero risk to join Money.School. So the link is Money.School. You simply just type into any web page right now, Money.School. So I'll see you inside Money.School. Thanks for tuning in. One final chance to guess how much silver is here in its entirety, and if anyone can get to the closest within the value of one silver coin, fuck it, I'll give you a bar. Why not? So thanks for tuning in, and remember, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything.